What time no kwisi na sisi we yedwuma sugar factory o musu pa dey taxpayers money and aban akɔhwɛ se we baby na da ba dem adis wo won wie na aban fofo abada no so wat na adwuma dem akona aban da obo no wat na adwuma ho na adnis wo na adno rust aban wadi ehwemo bebre.
This is the factory that is supposed to be producing sugar for the country, but it has been idle for 5 years. The roof is rusty and worn out. Before we get into the details of the current state of the factory, let's trace how Ghana found itself in this situation. It may sound basic, but Ghana had a dream to start producing sugar locally. Hence the rebirth of the Komenda Sugar Factory. The old factory, built in 1964, became defunct about 30 years ago. A loan of $36.5 million was invested into the factory. Resuming operations at the factory was a perfect opportunity to do things right this time around and cut down on Ghana's importation of sugar.
So as I speak, every single cube of sugar, every single grain of sugar that we eat here in Ghana is imported from outside. Komenda is going to change that. This project will provide direct and indirect jobs to an estimated 7,300 people.
Unfortunately, the facility shut down in July 2016 because of inadequate sugarcane. It was due to reopen in October 2016, but never did to date.
Strategic investor also,
But it took 2 years before the government announced a new investor for the sugar factory.
This factory, like any other factory, will keep on needing ongoing investment, ongoing retooling.
There sits the Komenda Sugar Factory in its rusted glory. It has been abandoned for so many years. It is not producing sugar. And there are so many youth in the community needing jobs, and they have none. What time no kwisi na sisi we yedwuma sugar factory o musu pa dey taxpayers money and aban akɔhwɛ se we baby na da ba dem adis wo won wie na aban fofo abada no so wat na adwuma dem akona aban da obo no wat na adwuma ho na adnis wo na adno rust aban wadi ehwemo bebre.
Right, so Jojo Kobina brought us that report that you just heard. Now, I'm coming to you. I'm starting with you, Kofi Bento, to go to Mr. Yamson. And Kofi Bento, because when this whole project started, Imani, was issuing warnings and all of that. But eventually, where did you come to? I just want to read this small portion of the Constitution Review Commission's recommendation for our planning purposes and what happened. The Constitution Review Commission had recommended that the NDPC, the National Development Planning, is a commission now, should be made to be like an independent constitutional body, not subject to the politicians' dictates. And then it recommended, among other things, that the NDPC should be an independent constitutional body subject only to the Constitution. Every president and government should be bound to comply with the terms of the long-term National Development Plan developed by the NDPC and approved by Parliament. So they should be bound. And they also said other things, that the NDPC should be mandated to develop a binding, comprehensive, strategic, multi-year, long-term national development plan with short and medium-term plans built into it, from which programs, projects, activities, and budgets may be drawn. We had a white paper that rejected this decision. that you don't have to bind the politicians. And in fact, politicians from across the divide agreed that you don't need to bind them. Kofi, Komenda, where we are now, what do you say?
So, Samson, it is sad again that we've been proven right. But I keep reminding people that it's not that we are naysayers or doomsday prophets. It is our job to warn the nation and warn our leaders when we find something that is worrying. And in this situation, we did find it 2 years ahead of time. We published it in copious detail. We took the time. Now, this is the stuff they pay politicians millions of dollars to do. And I'm making this point because you can choose to ignore what advice somebody gives you. But if you choose to ignore that advice, you definitely have to do better than what that person is suggesting, especially when you're using public money, okay? And Komenda is in a long line of projects just like what we've discussed. I want to quote Jean Monnet. Jean Monnet said, some problems cannot be changed in their present context. The context must first be changed by transforming the basics. In this issue of abandoned projects, reckless political promises, and the things that have bedeviled us all these years, wasting money, this is what we must appreciate. We need to change the basics of how we do some of these things. Some of it is in parliament, indeed most of it. Some of it is in changing our law. But back to Komenda. The simple issue about Komenda was that at the time we were building Komenda, sugar mills were closing in India at an alarming rate. And as we speak, they are still closing. The world was awash with, refined sugar. At the time we were building Komenda, we had a situation where when we did the calculation, and it was not difficult, Samson, it is not hard to find these things if you spend a bit of time on it. It is our part-time that we use to do that analysis. We found out that Komenda 1 could not produce the raw materials, did not have what it required. In fact, the investment of 36 million was not sufficient. We needed another 20-something million for the outgrower scheme. Even if we had the money for the outgrower scheme, we needed, some people said, up to 6,000 acres of land. We had only 1,000 ready, and the places had been encroached. The sugar variety that we needed to plant is not planted in Ghana. We checked with the farmers who did not want a situation where all their sugar will go to one factory, the factory doesn't buy it, then they have a problem. The cassava plant that President Kufuor did suffered a similar problem. Many things, and we came to a simple conclusion, and the conclusion was that even if we import raw materials and produce sugar, refined sugar in Komenda, it will cost 3 times the price of imported sugar in Ghana. The only way to make Komenda work will be to stop all sugar imports and force Ghanaians to buy sugar at 3 times the price. That does not make sense, because development must be aimed at making the people better, not worse off. So based on so many other things, and because we don't have time, I can't go into the details, we knew 2 years before time that Komenda was an emotional project to revive Kwame Nkrumah's legacies. It was not well thought through, and we challenged anybody to bring any research to that effect. And we won based on all of these things. We saw how the raw materials were not there, they had to import them. We saw all kinds of things, some of which we had specifically described in detail. As we speak, I can tell you, Samson, all the work we've done shows us that anybody who puts even $1 behind Komenda Sugar Factory, like the MPP is promising to do, will be wasting that $1. The best use of the Komenda Sugar Factory is to repurpose it. And to that, I would reserve some of my points. But we need to appreciate that we are making a mistake.
Kofi, let us understand you. You are saying, even at this point of how much we have wasted, time wasted, and all money wasted, so to speak, because we will not get the value of what we have spent in the manner we should get it for all this time that we have left it to lie fallow. And from the reports that have come out, of course, we need to even repair a lot of things over the period. Now, at 2016, we were told that Ghana spends $2 million, not Ghana cedis, every year to import sugar into this country. You are saying that we should abandon this project and continue to spend this much, $2 million every year to import sugar, when we could think about how we can do this ourselves?
Samson, again, you see, we are importing $2 million of sugar into this country every year. That is one side of the story. Of course, if we can produce sugar in this country, we should. But that's also not the full story. If we can produce sugar at a price that is commensurate with what we are getting now, then we should. We cannot, analysis is cold and impersonal. It has no respect for emotions. So the point is, if anybody says we are importing $100 million of rice and this and that, the point is, can you produce rice at that quality and at that price? If you cannot, like I said, the only way to make Komenda Sugar Factory work, producing refined sugar, would be to stop all importations of sugar. And if we are paying 10 cedis for a unit of sugar, we are prepared to pay 30 cedis for a unit of sugar. Then Komenda will work. It doesn't make any sense anywhere in the world. So my point is this. In our research, we found at least 2 ways that we can deal with Komenda, but that's beside the point. The specific issue now is this. The concept originally was flawed. And like I keep saying, you don't have to believe what we say. Do your own research. I remember it was on this program Newsfile a few years back when I said Komenda Sugar Factory will not produce sugar. It will produce propaganda and strife. Down the line, who has been proven right? People like Arthur Kennedy, both on MDC and MPP side, slammed us and called us all kinds of names. But again, we have taken on the unenviable duty of doing this work that our leaders refuse to do. So in terms of what we are importing and how much we are spending, etc., the question is, if we can import sugar and take care of our sugar needs, let us do that and let people use the sugar that they need. Okay. If we can produce sugar at a price that is equal to what we are importing, then let us do so. But there's no reason why we should put state funds, over $40 million as we speak, into producing sugar that is going to cost us 3 times more, that nobody is going to buy anyway. Okay, it's a waste of money, and time has proven that this analysis is sound. So we should stop being emotional and do the right things.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring in Harry Yamson here. Yes, what do you say?
Well, look, analysis ought to be cold and impartial. Yes, I agree. But there's another side to the analysis. And that other side is that we have 68,000 young people who come into the jobs market every year. It behoves on the leaders of the country to think through structural change that will actually resolve this warped economy that we have, so that it has the ability and the power to generate the jobs that we are all crying about. Now, the biggest way for Ghana to resolve that issue is through integrated agricultural projects and the alignment of our agribusiness to that. Now, we are not the world's most efficient grower of rice or of tomatoes, but both NPP and NDC have invested significantly in developing the Palugu Dam. Would we say it is for waste? No, it is not for waste. We have to invest, we have to add manufacturing to it so that we can build a stronger, better economy in the north. In the same way, we have potential to do something with agriculture in the central region. So Komenda may have had some analytical flaw, but there is nothing wrong strategically with Ghana saying that we will find a way to turn our agriculture into the basis for powering our economy. And so all the thinking must be about how we make it work, not how we tear it down. Now, here's my point. So Vietnam was not once the biggest and best producer of rice. Today they are. What did they do? They started, they built, they invested, and they made sure that they became efficient. That is what we also should be turning our energies to. Now, so President Mahama started Komenda. It has faltered. What do? We ought to make it work, because certainly $28 million is not the reason why Komenda must fail. We have $28 million to buy cars, new cars. So I always have a struggle when we serve up projects over peanuts, and then we buy luxury with that money. We ought to make Komenda work. 28 million is not the reason to kill that factory. And I tell you, $200 million or whatever of imported sugar is justification enough for us to build that factory. After all, what does it cost to build that factory? And what does it cost to turn 6,000 acres of land into a plantation to feed the factory? It will not cost us 200 million. And even if it costs us 200 million, the factory will not live for the 1 or 5 years that it costs to find the money to make it work. That factory will live for 30 years and 50 years. So it will pay for itself. We ought to be brave when it comes to our economy. We ought to be brave when we start projects. But we ought to think long and hard about it and know that, yes, we are a small economy, so we will start with difficulty. Nigeria, once upon a time, stopped all importation of fruit juice because they were determined to make that sector work for the Nigerian economy. What is different about Ghana? So we are excusing wrong decisions to just destroy initiatives for no good reason. We must think long and hard about our future.
All right.
And that means that whether it is housing, whether it is agriculture, whether it is agribusiness, look, under Achampong, we had the longest period of sustained value addition in agriculture. We all know about it. Did it serve Ghana well? Yes, it did. And what did we gain when it all collapsed? We gained unemployment. We gained inflation. We gained cedi depreciation, in fact, devaluation. So there is no reason for us to sit here today and say that we should not build capacity into our own economy. Should 68,000 young people be unemployed? Should the central region not have industry? Should the northern region not have a vibrant agricultural sector? The answer to all of those things is no. So the question now becomes, if we need to change the constitution, let's change it and make sure that the things that are started are finished. And if we need to write laws, let's write the law and make sure that people, when they go to parliament and approve a project, will be bound to make sure that it comes to fruition. Otherwise, we are wasting our time, we are wasting our tax money, we are wasting our energies, and quite honestly, we are not making any demand on the people who come into power and say, we will serve you. After all, we don't vote for people just to come and talk. We vote for them to come and deliver. We don't employ people into the public sector to lose us money. We employ them to make us money.
All right. So bottom line, Mr. Yamson, you are saying...
I'm coming. For me, my point is this. Strategically, let us also stop this business of saying government to build, government to own. Government must make it possible for the private sector to do the business. This is the other side of it. Every time we want government to be the one that does it, it's wrong. It's not the business of government. It is the business of government to package this country and make it attractive and put in place all the right support. It's not government's business to go and run factories. That is where we have a problem. Yeah, and that is what all the political parties are guilty of and must move away from.
Okay, so as I understand you, it's a project we must pursue and complete as quickly as we can and do whatever it takes to make it sustainable. And as again, you mentioned the unemployment situation. And just last week, the finance minister, told us that there are no more jobs in the public sector. So people should go into entrepreneurship. You suggest, as I understand, that giving this into some private hands, so to speak, is the best approach?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, South Korea put private people in charge of its auto industry. But at all times in its infancy, they were protected by the power of the purse of the state. There's nothing wrong with using the power of the purse of the state to protect infant industry. But we must be very clear-minded about how long we will do it and what we will demand as performance to ensure that at some point in time, the things we start and nurture will stand on their own.
All right.
What we do is the opposite. We make a demand on government to baby us. And unfortunately, politicians are looking for 4 years and 8 years. So they also go along. But that's why I'm saying that the people must start to make a demand on politicians. We are not looking for shallow thinking. We are looking for depth. And we are looking for strategic thinking, and we are looking for delivery.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Martin, I wanted you to listen to the guys in the studio and sort of finish up with you in perhaps paying attention to your point of view, which you started to canvass about tweaking the Constitution to compel, over this abandonment issues. Now, and I must correct, earlier I was saying 2 million US dollars, actually 200, as I understand. And by now, it would have increased. We are spending in excess of 200 million US dollars per annum to bring in sugar. And we can't put up a good sugar factory and ensure the production of the raw materials to employ our people and get the money to stay here. We can't do that.
See, that is why I am completely stunned and dumbfounded by the submissions of Mr. Bento on this matter. I mean, and this is the same argument he made on the issue of e-blocks, that the e-block promise was a reckless promise. It was a panic reaction to the free SHS policy. Says who? We are in a country today confronted with a double track system because there is no space in our secondary education level. And you are saying that a policy to build secondary schools so that children can go to school is a panic reaction, is a reckless promise. I cannot fathom that. We spend over $200 million per annum on the importation of sugar. We have the conditions necessary for the cultivation of sugar cane in Ghana. And for that matter, the processing of same into sugar. Yet Mr. Bento says that the Komenda Sugar Factory project is useless. It's not viable. And he doesn't give us any basis for his assessment. He says that the only way the factory can work is for us to ban the importation of sugar and have Ghanaians buying sugar 3 times what they are paying for sugar now. What is his basis for that assertion? Does he know what was going to be the cost of production at the Komenda Sugar Factory? Does he know? Has he supplied us with that information? He has not. So on what basis is he saying that that project is not a viable project, a commercially viable project? I don't understand something. Look,
you haven't followed the Imani analysis.
No, he has not done any analysis, and he says he has been proven right. Mr. Bento.
No, I don't think you should be saying that. If you have followed,
no, I'm saying he has not given us.
Started.
Well, we are talking about Newsfile, today's edition of Newsfile. Has he given us any empirical basis for his claim that the Komenda Sugar Factory is not commercially viable and that they cannot produce at a competitive price? Has he given us any figures, any values?
He gave you some grounds. You don't want to take that, so proceed.
He's not even giving us any ground. But this is the point I'm making.
He did. He told you about what is happening in, is it India? And now,
that was back then. So we should, whether or not we build factories in Ghana should be based on what is happening in India. Is that what he's saying? I mean, I can't understand that. Look, there is a policy justification for the Komenda Sugar Factory. That justification has to do with the amount of forex exchange we spend every year on the importation of sugar, which places which places pressure on our currency and causes it to depreciate. And apart from that, which denies us of the opportunity to create jobs for the teeming unemployed youth of this country. And that is why the visionary Mahama administration sought funding from the Exim Bank of India to the tune of $35 million to construct this factory. Now, before the Indian government gave us that money, feasibility studies have been conducted. And the feasibility study for the Komenda Sugar Factory project was conducted with assistance of the National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited, India. You know that India is the second largest producer of sugar in the world. They have over 500 functional sugar factories. And so when we went to them that this is what we used to have in Ghana, the factory has collapsed for some time, that we want to revive it, they joined us in conducting the feasibility studies. And out of that feasibility studies, it came out that this factory, if it is constructed and operationalized, will generate $69.6 million in 10 years. The internal rate of retention of capital was found to be $75.58 million. And the debt service coverage ratio was found to be 4.14, which is excellent by international standards. That is the feasibility report, sponsored by the National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited, India. If Mr. Bento wants to dispute that with credible evidence or contrary facts, he can do so. But he cannot just say on top of his head that this project is not commercially viable, we cannot produce sugar in Ghana at a competitive price and all that, and expect us to take that hook, line, and sinker. Now we got a $35 million, and we constructed the factory. We constructed the factory first because we adopted what is called the backward integration approach, which was recommended by the Indians as part of the feasibility studies. Because as you do know, sugarcane is perishable. It takes 6 to 8 months to mature when it is grown. But you require 2 years and over to build a factory, which is supposed to last 100 years with routine maintenance. So the idea was that build a factory first. We'll give you $35 million as the first tranche of this facility to build the factory first. And then when you are done, you apply for the second tranche of $24 million for a sugarcane plantation to provide the necessary raw materials for the factory. So in November 2016, Parliament under the Mahama administration approved the second tranche facility of $24 million. And if everything had gone on as we had planned, by February, or if you like, first quarter 2017, some funds were supposed to come in as part of that second tranche for the sugarcane plantation. Now they came, and for political reasons, just like they suspended over 200 cocoa road projects under the guise of a clinical audit, which amounted to nothing. Just like they have abandoned the Saglemi housing project, 1,502 housing units. And the other projects we have discussed on this show, they decided that for political reasons, they were not going to pursue the money. That is how come they didn't get that $24 million second tranche facility from the Indian SM Bank for the sugarcane plantation. But what we had done was that the factory has a capacity, optimum capacity of processing 1,250 tons of sugarcane a day. But it requires a minimum, it has a minimum capacity of 150 tons. Now, in that Komenda catchment area, there are outgrowers of sugarcane there, and they have the capacity to produce 500 to 700 tons. And so the plan was that even before the sugarcane plantation, which was supposed to be undertaken with a second tranche of $24 million, comes on stream, the factory was going to improvise with what farmers, sugarcane farmers in the area were going to produce, which was around 500 to 700 tons, which would have been okay. And that after 6-8 months, the sugarcane plantation would have been cultivated, 40% owned by Komenda Sugar Factory itself, 60% by private outgrowers, so that the factory will have the needed raw materials to produce sugar. And we have done all the feasibilities. Look, this factory would have created thousands of direct jobs and thousands of indirect jobs. And at least it would have saved this country minimum $10 million that we spend every year on the importation of sugar. How anybody can condemn such a brilliant innovation or project is something I cannot fathom. And now, I have friends in the MPP led by President Akufo-Addo who says that it was wrong for us to have put up the factory before, putting up the sugarcane plantation. And the president says we put up the roofing sheet of the building before we thought of the foundation. Where is that coming from? if you build a factory worth $35 million, which is supposed to last forever, where would the factory vanish to? Like I said, you have 6 to 8 months to grow and harvest sugarcane. And so, and bear in mind that sugarcane is perishable.
All right.
If you grow the sugarcane first and there is no factory to mill it, you're going to create huge financial losses. So what we did was right. It is they who have failed to continue from where we left off to assess the $24 million we had procured. Parliament had approved it for a sugarcane plantation. So what I am saying in conclusion is that we don't need any constitutional amendments on this issue of abandonment of developmental projects, because government will always cite excuses of we don't have enough money. It has to do with political commitments. That is the bottom line. Why? We have so many laws, something you know, and you've been complaining about it in this country, which are not being adhered to, which are not being enforced. The reason why the Komenda Sugar Factory is in its current dilapidated shape is because President Akufo-Addo doesn't have the political will and commitment to continue it. It is the same for the abandoned cocoa road projects, the same for the abandoned E-block projects, the same for the abandoned hospital projects, and so on. So let us not blame this on politicians. I get a bit worried when we try to always box politicians together and say, oh, NDC.
All right,
we have not done that.
Thank you very much.
This is an MPP problem, and let's call them out for that.
Now, you see, if I'm trying to get the figure for now, because I understand it's gone up a lot more, and this was predicted. In fact, we as a country, we have a sugar policy. We have a Ghana sugar policy. And we sought to give some justification. We know we have the esochari, which has also been there, you know, for a long time and, you know, sort of dying out. Esochari. Then we are informed that these two factories, which had been historically available for us to also be proud, they were halted by the end of 1981. And they were halted because of inappropriate factory designs and difficulty in obtaining backup spares, inadequate irrigation facilities and farm machinery, excess or excessive government controls, and poor industrialization infrastructural state. Yeah. The question I ask myself is, are these things we cannot resolve? And Kofi, I'm coming to you. I've seen your hand up on your Zoom because you want to make some quick reaction. So when Kofi finishes, that's the question I want you to address. These issues, inappropriate factory designs and difficulty in obtaining backup spares, inadequate irrigation facilities and farm machinery, we just build more. Inappropriate factory designs and difficulty in obtaining backup spares, we just resolve that. Excessive government controls, reduce the government control. And Mr. Yamson is suggesting we give it to private hands. Poor infrastructural state, we make sure there is maintenance. We don't do that. That's why these collapse in the first place. The way to revive them is to simply take these and do the revival. Yes, Kofi, in some minutes, what's the reaction you want to give to Sami?
The reaction is that, you see, this kind of visceral reaction to cold, hard research is why Ghana has lost its researchers. They have all gone into banking and nobody talks about what is fact. And that's why we keep losing money. We are being emotional about this. At Imani, we've decided we'll speak the truth and let things fall where they were. Look, the tomato factory, remember just about a decade ago, we revived the tomato factory with millions of dollars. They started producing. What happened? They produced and nobody purchased them. We left the millions, including tomato processed, in the bush, and they were overtaken by goats. That kind of economics is not emotional. We need to be clear. Mr. Yamson talks about, well, we have a problem, so let us do all these things. Mr. Yamson, if we do these things like we did with the tomato factory and don't think through it, we will waste more money. Because when you go and put an olonka of sugar at Mokola, and it costs 100 cedis, and the imported sugar costs 30 cedis, you will know which one people will buy. Then you talk about let's bring private investors. This MPP government has lined up private investors. They go and see the Komenda Sugar Factory. They look at it, and then they do the analysis that we don't want to do. And then they just walk away. All right? So let us not get emotional about, oh, we need to do this. We are importing sugar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on.
The laws of economics are laws of nature.
No, we cannot be doing rebuttals. We cannot be rebutting. We will.
He just responded.
It will be an ending.
I just wanted to ask him, does he remember their projections about the Tuabo gas processing factory and the Ghana Gas Company? Is he ready to eat humble pie? Today, that factory is saving this country $300 million per annum. Yes, you guys said that we didn't need it.
What was projected.
I'm sorry, Mr. Benton, but you are the one being emotional because you have not given us any empirical evidence to show that we cannot produce sugar in this country at a competitive price.
We've not given a lot of research and we published it. So, Sammy, you need to read a bit.
Kindly share that with me.
Time has proven us right.
But you've not articulated the basis of that research on this program.
The president has tried to bring foreign investors. Time has proven us right. You don't have the raw materials. You don't have the land. You don't.
You said we couldn't do the Ghana Gas
factory.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now it's Okoboy's turn. It's Okoboy's turn, and like I outlined what has led to these things, to the point where, in our own policy, we are not happy that we have zero sugar production. We are not happy about it. And we actually estimate that while sugar imports into Ghana chalk the 8th most valuable product and the 4th largest food import after rice, fish, and poultry. We can do something about Ghana rice. We still are not doing much. I don't know what's wrong with us. Fish and poultry, why can't what's going on?
Something. First of all, a policy has a good chance of succeeding when it is anchored in research, experience, and technical know-how. If it is fueled and motivated by political gain or propaganda, it will die early. Very, very important. And my attitude is not to fight think tanks or researchers, but to listen and see whether you disagree at some points or you do not. Now,
So the part I was getting to where I got lost was that the estimation is that we are going to experience rapid growth in sugar consumption. And that represents a potential sugar export market for Ghana.
I know.
So why would somebody say that we can produce sugar in Ghana?
I'll address it. There is the potential. There is a market. Now, you commissioned a factory on the 30th of May 2016. And then, just after 5 months, you shut it down and say that it's produced sugar. So you want to do services. Only to put an advertisement in the papers. Now listen to this carefully, like Benton said. Looking for an investor that will partner you as a state to run the factory. How was the business plan done? How come you build a factory, go for a loan, invest state resources in the factory, when you don't even have an idea of who your partner is going to be? Now, you place the advertisement, people present bids, and everybody gave you a value that was less than $50 million. According to all the facts, it was only Inga, one company, that said they will come for it above the stated price of. Please.
Don't interfere.
Yes.
Don't interfere.
And us, we didn't do that. You sought to sell it.
So you don't listen. Ascenta Property Consulting, they did this estimate before MPP came and put it at 53.7 million. That's the value. When they put the bid, only one took the bid. Even that person who offered about $50 million ran away, never came to take the project. When we came, we did an audit. The audit put it at $12 million. Remember, and that's where Benton talk about procurement issues, how contracts are awarded, the evaluation. You go for over $35 million to build a plant, and only for it to turn out after estimates valuation by both AESL and Pricewater. Now, government, the NDC wanted to sell 70% shares, but they were looking at a total value of 53 million. Only for those who came for it to say, no, this your project is not worth 53 million. That is where procurement issues come, and that's where the challenge came. Now, even the attitude of the NDC or their roadmap showed that they were not going to run it fully as a state-run company. They wanted to partner someone. Now, if we come to office and we are looking for a partner, and the partners are running away because of the valuation you put on and the prospects and potential and viability of the project, how do you blame the government that is looking for a partner for not running? If you say we are not running, it means you are expecting us to be the total shareholder and to run it on a day-to-day. So really, even the logic is warped, and it shows the confusion that the whole Komenda factory thing had in the beginning. Where someone builds a factory and says, after 5 months, I'm looking for a partner. What if your partner, it takes you 10 years to identify a partner? Please. No, please.
I mean, you don't understand this simple
The NDC government, led by John Dramani Mahama, started looking for a partner before we came.
Do what?
Please. They were looking for someone to buy 70% shares of the factory. There will be 30% shareholding. It means you want partnership. Why do you build a factory? And when it is done, you start looking for a partner. Now, let me come here. And I've learned this through a lot of people must read. I'm not referring to my brother. You can't apply 20th century methods in industry to the 21st century. The reason why factories under Nkrumah failed, if you go through them, competition, if it costs $1,000 to produce one tractor, let's say in Ghana, and they are using $100 to produce it in Brazil, and we use 1,000 hours for the one tractor, and they use 10 hours or 100 hours, over time, that factory that produces tractor here will go under. The only way factories that produce goods at a high price because they don't have comparative advantage succeed is when you give them fixed markets, not using free markets.
That's holistic markets.
Exactly. Command and control. So that all this must be in your business plan. If you know you're coming with Komenda to try and reduce the 200 million imports, what you do, you can decide as a state that, look, all sugar at prisons, all sugar at schools, all sugar here, they need about, let's say, 100 tons a year. The capacity of this factory is 100 tons a year. All by a state, our ruling goes there. If you don't do that and you want them to come in the general market, the investor will come and ask you, how do I sell this sugar? Looking at the things you have. So really the point I'm making is that it was a matter of one, not only confusion, but incompetence as well. Trying as a country to build a factory before later looking for a partner. Now, let me tell you this, Samson. How come Volkswagen came into this country to set up their plant? Something preceded their plant. We had the automotive policy. What is that policy? It tells you the conditions you put in place as a state before an investor can consider the investment viable. If we, Ghana, had built an automotive factory and called the VW to come and buy shares, they will tell you, first of all, one, you have to have this policy. Two, you have to do. So the point I'm making
is that the same in asking that you must have sugar cane before you build a sugar
No, but there are three things involved. It's not only about, first of all, like Bento said, there was only propaganda in this. The business plan was very unsustainable. Look, you need...
Who gets up? Which politician? How wicked?
Yeah.
You get up and you think that let's go and take 36 million. Now we say we are spending almost 40 million and sink it into a project that we know in our heart of hearts is not viable.
Let me explain. It's very simple. Do you realize that all those who came to partner us after the evaluation, it showed that the value of the factory is not what the money that the state said they had used it for. You know what it means? If they valued at $12 million, 70% comes to 8.4 million. That's what we'll get back. Now, we spent 35. So even from day one, if we had even gotten an investor, we've lost, there's financial loss even from day one because the value put in. And like, what's the word? Like Bento said, look, don't take it for granted. You can get leaders who are lost when it comes to the economics or the policy. Immediately, listen to this, very important.
So the motivation is corruption?
No, I'm coming. You see, apart from the emotional attachment to, let's say, Komenda, I told you about the market. You can decide to allocate markets and all that. But immediately you decide to spend that amount of money when you've not taken into consideration the land size you need to feed the factory, the price at which it will come out, and the market that will go for it, then it means you have serious issues. So, I don't have evidence here. So I don't want to say that the motivation was just building it and getting something from it. But really, in terms of sustainability, and that's why after 5 months, the John Dramani Mahama government started looking for an investor after they built a factory.
You say you are committed to it. It's
yes.
taking how long?
Now, let me tell you something.
How do you justify that? And still the president is today visiting the place and making promises.
So you know what will happen? And that's why Bento talk about we finding laws that will punish public officers who put us in a situation which is a big mess.
The laws are there.
Yeah. Now look, to revive this factory, already all the valuations have shown us that we are not going to get the kind of money that the state put in. It's less than, way less than. It's 12.5 by AESL. It's 12 by both AESL and Pricewater, which means that's where you are going to room. Already our money is gone. Number two, the investor must get some other assurances, like you had under 1D1F. What are the tax exemptions? What are the market sources? Obviously, and people must get this, if you're a country, it's not every product you import that you try to substitute. Germany imports about 1.05 trillion worth of food. Almost every food consumed in Germany comes from South America and other places. They've not gone into food production because their comparative advantage is stronger in machinery and automotives. So, although we are importing sugar at $200 million, the question is that if you produce sugar in Ghana, at what cost will you sell it? Now, this is the economics. To get the same quality and quantum of sugar in Ghana, it is possible Ghanaians must spend $400 million to get that. That's when you don't have comparative advantage. So, the same quantum of sugar in Ghana, Komenda can produce it, but Ghanaians must spend $400 million. That leads to increased quality of life, and that's where smuggling comes in. So you see sugar now coming in from Nigeria. Sugar will be coming from Togo because the price will be higher. So they got the economics wrong. The competence was very low. The concept and model was very, very poor. And I like this statement from Bento. He said, what they could identify with their part-time, full-time of Mama administration could not identify. And Bentil has been justified by the two potential investors who came, looked at the books, looked at the factory, and vanished. Two, one under Inga, under JM, came, said, I'll get it. When he came, he looked at all the books. He never showed up. And us, Park Agrotech, also from India, they came, looked at everything. They said, no, this thing has been overvalued. And two, we need to spend millions of dollars, hundreds, to try and bring it up. And even with that, please, what is your market like? We need to be assured of the market. So if you are running a free market, as a president, you must understand that you are running a free market. If you want to give allocation to reduce the imports, you must have some command and control for some areas. All this, they lost it. And in the future, as we look for a private investor, these are the detailed work that will be done both by the investor and the state, so that you have a sustainable, viable project.
Martin, the things that Okoboy, points us to, very plausible. How could this have eluded those who set up to revive Komenda Sugar Factory?
Which of the things he said?
Oh, you didn't listen to him? Comparative advantage. He's mentioned
Ghana
a number of things.
The comparative advantage to produce sugar.
Please, sorry. Yes, Martin.
Okay. Yeah. Sam, to be very honest with you, look, the analysis looks too dizzying. So I don't want to buy into it now. I'd rather prefer that we bring technical persons, okay, persons who are in charge, okay, persons who produce sugar, so that we can make a very informed decision. Because this looks just too dizzying. Because if I were to go with what Dr. Okoboy is saying, then straight away it means that even the Komenda Sugar Factory should have been the first candidate for criminal prosecutions, not Sagleme. Sam, if what Okoboy is saying is true, and that the valuation shows 12 point something million and all those things, then it means that Sagleme should have been the first candidate for criminal prosecutions for financial loss to the state. But so far, you haven't heard government make that argument that there is financial loss and all that. So I want to hasten very slowly and buying into the submissions that it's a totally stillborn project. Because so far, nobody has been able to make that submission that this is financial loss. So it tells you that we should hasten very slowly in buying today's submissions that is just a waste of our money. Let's get the technical people at the table, then at least we can be assured that the buyers and the motivation
Martin,
yes, Kofi, go ahead and ask your question. I was going to ask Martin.
Help him, Martin. You see, when you do analysis, there is analysis that you do before the fact. When you do that, that is projection. But when the fact happens, you have to use what has happened to make your decision. What has happened now is that, one, the sugar factory as it was designed has not come through. We've not been able to produce the sugar, even though they imported some, they couldn't produce it. Two, they tried to bring the private investors, both President Mahama and this new government. These investors investing their own money, know what they are doing. They check, they see the overvaluation, they see that the economics of this whole plan does not work. So they walk away. After over 5 years of experiencing something, it is just not smart for you to deny what you are seeing. What we are seeing is that both the government has been unable, private sector has been unable, and we are telling you based on the economics, we've shown that if you produce that thing, it will cost you more.
Martin, finish your point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Martin, finish your point quickly. Let me take a break and return for the conclusion. Yes.
Yes, Sam. So what is very clear to me is that, listen, we as Ghanaians at this stage of our development, okay, it will be good for us to produce sugar in Ghana. The market is good, at least, even I'm a lay person, but I know that we consume a lot of sugar. So when I hear figures like, no, it may cost 3 times and the rest, to be honest, I have doubts in my mind, though I've not seen the figures. So that's why I'm once again saying that let's bring technical people, let's have real figures. Because, I mean, come on, producing sugar, is it rocket science? Producing sugar, is it rocket science that we've been playing with this thing for over 5 years?
But Martin, why do I need a technical person to tell me these hard facts? These hard facts.
Sam,
like I said,
you've not heard from the businessmen yourself.
No, I'm taking.
You've not heard them.
No, Martin. We all learn, we read. So you are hearing things that you say sound very plausible to you and sound like they should have been inescapable and have been escaped. Yes.
And yet, Sam, look at this. The elephant in the room, if that is correct, that nobody is mentioning criminal prosecution. So as soon as you are not hearing criminal prosecutions, please, it tells you that we are not getting all the facts, because I don't think President Kufuor would have wasted any chance at prosecuting persons who were responsible for this investment if there was financial loss. So that's where my doubt is coming from. Look at Sagleme. You see that Sagleme, as soon as they came in, the warning was sounded that they will be headed for a criminal prosecution. It took years, but finally it came. But ask yourself,
Kwame Sapong says, whilst many countries are imposing sugar taxes to curb the creeping impact of diabetes, we are fixated on the money Ghana spends on importing sugar. Why don't we have a public health discussion on Ghana's sugar intake? Do we realize diabetes is on the rise in our country and killing? The idea that it was projected that Ghana's sugar intake was going to increase when justifying the Komenda Sugar Factory makes me cringe. We take a break. We return with very limited time to get just brief comments on the NCA and revival of 133 radio stations.